Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our AI Well Month sessions. This is our last session, the AI Will Symposium. I would like to begin by doing a land acknowledgement. I am rested on the lands of Sherbrooke, Quebec, which are the traditional lands of the Wabanaki people from the Abenaki Confederacy. I, as a racialized settler, benefit from being here. As such, I try and learn about the traditions and the stories of the stewards of this land from time immemorial. I would also like to acknowledge that it's Black History Month, and I would like to recognize the struggles for liberation undertaken by Black Canadians and celebrate their contributions to human rights and anti-racism practices. We at CEWIL Canada did a course at Coursera to recognize this struggle. The link will be shared with you in the chat, but we also recognize not everybody can afford to do courses. Fiscal resources are strained right now in our sector. So there's a free survey in the chat as well. A free source, sorry, for the chat as well. This brings me to my next point, which is the survey. This has been a month of sessions dedicated to learning, but we may have forgotten something. And your voice is incredibly important to us. So we have a survey, and I would ask that you fill it out, and we will design a community response event to try and address these questions roughly within a month. So if there is burning questions you need to have answered, we will try and do that at CEWIL Canada. For AI Will Month, this is the final session, and over the past 3 weeks, we've moved from AI Will readiness frameworks with Dr. Miv Kizrak to the economics of AI with Neil Desai to AI governance and democracy in Will with David Evan Harris. Today, we bring it all together with workforce transformation with Dr. Kevin Jones, followed by a tools panel with practitioners building in this space right now. I want to start by introducing our keynote. Our opening keynote speaker today is Dr. Kevin Jones, someone who has spent over 3 decades at the intersection of technology, strategy, and human capital. He's an award-winning MBA professor with 37 years in the classroom and strategic human resource development, and who's guided organizations through complex digital transformations. He's spoken at global stages across the world, and in fact, even spoke at World Summit AI in Montreal, which is where I'm from, Quebec. What makes Kevin's work especially relevant for us today is his focus on AI competency research. He's dedicated to equipping the next generation of talent and their industry partners with the durable competencies needed to build a future-ready workforce. His message is one I think this community needs to hear, that in an AI-enhanced landscape, human agency and strategic insights remain the ultimate competitive advantage. Kevin, welcome. We are thrilled to have you today to set the tone for today's symposium. I leave the floor to you.
Hello and bonjour, and I'm just glad to be speaking in Canada. And just, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll see how that works. Let's try it here. Share the screen. I'm technologically challenged, even though I talk about technology. Isn't that amazing? How's it? If I can talk about it, I can't do it, right? Is that what it is? So here we go. So now I'm going to share my screen the right way in the slideshow. And we're going to go from the beginning. Oh, okay, we have to do that little thing again, don't we? We have to do a little switch there. That's it. We're going to have to switch up a little bit here. Let me see here. Let me get this ready to go here. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to make a little adjustment here in my slides so we can share the right screen. So we're going to go from here to the right type of show. Help me again in how we're going to share the right screen.
Of course, Kevin, go share screen.
Share screen, yes. Share
And
screen.
and then you're going to go to the top on the bar. There's slideshow settings. And then
Slideshow setting. That's what it is.
you
That's what
switch.
it is. Aha. Slideshow setting, yes. And we are now using which one?
You're going to go into regular slideshow, not the presenter view.
Okay. Regular slideshow. From the beginning. And
And don't
oh,
forget, you need to share your screen here too in the Zoom.
yes. That's what I'm trying. That's why I will do that. I think. All right, come on, come on. I'm so embarrassed.
No,
Inside.
you're okay.
Oh, let's see the slideshow. Okay, from the beginning, right?
Mhm.
And okay, it's not really doing what I think it should do. I'm afraid I'm still stuck. Let's one more time. Let's walk back through this. I have my slides in front of me.
Why
So
don't we start with sharing the screen so I can see what you see and I can walk you through it?
okay, let's do that. Let me share the screen. So you folks, I could always say I'm an old man. I don't know anything about technology. I can always use that as the excuse. All right. So this is where
Okay,
I am
go from the beginning.
from the beginning.
Perfect. It's just loading. One second.
Okay.
Oh,
This was the dilemma I was having. It was us pushing on the from the beginning as not
oh,
going
it's
to the
not.
beginning.
Can you go play from current slide? Go to the next one and
Okay.
go here. So what I would do, it doesn't look like anything's happening. I would close this and relaunch it.
All right. Let's do it. Let's close that. And you get a chance to see some other things behind you. See, I have books I was looking at, all kind of things. So I'm going to stop my share here. Okay. Now let's go here back to the slideshow. Sorry, folks. We'll get there. I'll make it. I'll speed up. I'll catch up from this here, this little gap here. Ah, yes. All right, here it comes. Okay, time
Yeah.
to
Now
reload.
let's, yes. Now share the,
Reshare. I will. I'll share this here. Go back to Zoom. Zoom. Share. And believe it or not, folks, we practice it, so it's on me. It's on me. They showed me how to do it, and then I forgot that quickly. All right, here we are.
okay, perfect. And don't worry about that. So at the top, just like you were, go to slideshow. So at the top, yes, slideshow, perfect. And now you're gonna play when it transitions. There you go, play from the beginning. So right to the left.
Hmm?
And now it's thinking. I see the blue circle going.
Hmm?
And now here on display settings. So you see at the top, there's a bar. It says show tax swap.
And that's right.
Here, now
Swap,
you're to slideshow.
duplicate, or swap.
Swap presenter view and slideshow, the first one. And now you're good to go, Kevin.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just experienced what we call ignorance of the ability to do. And it also justifies why we need work integrated learning. Because you can read about it, you can have it in the classroom, but you have to be able to do it when it actually matters in the real world setting. So you just got a chance to experience what it's like for students who learn in the classroom and then they are placed in the real world context and have to perform. Welcome to Architecting the Future, Workforce Transformation in the Age of Accelerated Transformation. Well, a little bit about me. Hey, I am a work integrated learning prodigy. Now, it was a long time ago, a long, long time ago. I was a youth leader. Now, this was not a formal will experience, but I literally, at age 12 till age 18, sat at the feet of a pastor who actually became mayor of the city, became a leader in the community. And I was the guy he called his little preacher. So I was trained, I was developed at an early age to public speak. How about that? Then we go to a real co-op program. When I was in college, I actually had a co-op and I worked for 6 months. I went to school for 6 months. I learned about what the real world is about. I still use those learnings that I gained when I was 19 years old through the age of 21, working at the Social Security Administration, which became my first job. By the way, I worked at a radio station, and it was not per se an apprenticeship or an internship, but it was a training session. I had a news director who would call me after every single time I was in the air. And he basically chewed me out, tell me, here's what I'm doing wrong, here's how I need to speak better, and so on and so forth. However, he was coaching, he was developing, he was treating me in a way that allows me to be able to be confident in my skills on radio. Oh, by the way, I have a podcast on WFIU radio in Bloomington, Indiana. Okay. And then finally, I had the formal role of being an internship coordinator. When I was in graduate school, I got a chance to meet with employers. I was placing students. I had the direct experience of helping students to transition from school, be part of school, and still gain work experiences. So I give you that background to say I'm excited today to be in front of you to talk about a few of my understandings about what we should be doing. I won't spend time on this right here, work integrated learning. You know what this is, okay? You know what this is. You know what will is. Some people may not know what it is, but I'm quite bullish on this particular perspective because I think every student, and yes, I mean every student. I've said as recently in a faculty meeting 2 months ago, before this presentation, I said every student that leaves our school should have a work integrated learning experience. Yes, I talk about this because I believe in it. So here's somebody from Canada. And oh, by the way, just as an aside, if you wonder what country have I traveled to outside the United States the most to, which country would that be? Canada. And people ask me sometimes, why do you always go to Canada? Because it's a great country, period. Okay, so let me just get that out there. Now, when young people are given support they need to succeed in the workforce, all of Canada benefits. I think that statement, I may not be saying her name right, Patty Hajdu, Minister of Jobs, Families, and she nails it as far as I'm concerned. You see, this is what we're doing. We're giving students, we're giving learners the opportunity to succeed by giving them work integrated learning experiences. Now, let me transition here a little bit, and I want to give a bit of a context. So, what I'm going to do in my presentation, I'm going to talk about something called the Age of Accelerated Transformation. I'm going to then talk about what I believe are competencies necessary in the Age of Accelerated Transformation. And then I'm going to come all the way back to work integrated learning, and I'm going to try to speak to you, given some things that I've learned about how we can make this work within the context of the Age of Accelerated Transformation. All right. So let's talk about the age of accelerated transformation. This is my signature concept. There's others that have talked about it, but I've pretty much said this is how we should be talking about this age. There are multiple compounding vectors that are creating this feeling and reality of acceleration. Okay. You have people who've talked about things like the age of accelerations, okay, or the age of transformation, or the law of acceleration. People talk about the fact that we are speeding up. And what I'm trying to do is look at some of the actual variables that are creating this particular acceleration. Now, the PESTO, if you are a business person, you may have heard the PESTO: political, economic, societal, technological, legal, environmental. These areas of external drivers or vectors are things that create the need for organizations to change. Welcome to my classroom. We talk about this all the time. Now, when we context the PESTO, we think about the different drivers of change. Well, right now, in this time, in this 21st century, would you agree that all of these things are changing? Would you agree they're changing in ways that many of us have not seen? Would you agree that whether it's political, economic, societal, and more, that we're seeing changes? Now, the difference in the age of accelerated transformation and people that focus on, say, the AI age, people tend to think, well, that's the driver of the acceleration. And while I will agree that it is one of the most significant drivers, in my lifetime, I'm not seeing a more transformative technology, and my lifetime's long, okay? However, it is not the only driver of this transformation that we're experiencing. And it's not the only driver that is creating the acceleration. These multiple vectors changing at the same time is creating this sense of unpredictability. It's creating this sense of uncertainty. It's creating this dynamism where there is no stable state. Well, this is the age of accelerated transformation. So when we think about an organization, whether it's your organization or someone else's organization, we recognize the acceleration is changing these three components of your organization: people, processes, and yes, even the technology that you have or you're deploying. This acceleration means that we can't be slow. We can be patient as we understand how people are learning. However, the speed of transformation is intimidating for some. But my point and premise is, let's recognize this is the norm. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. Some things we'll run through kind of quickly here. You're seeing this shift to from efficiency to optionality. This is the academic stuff for those who show doing a research presentation on Friday, so I wanted to slip a little of that in. All right, I'll run by this real quickly here. Obviously we're moving from an old world to new world. We're talking about multiple options. I mean, for everything, there's so many different options. One of the reasons I can't figure out the PowerPoint is because which one do I use? Do I use the graphic at the bottom to do the slideshow, or do I do the drop down menu, or is there something else? Do I control something? So many options in this world, and we all have to be adaptable. If you think, well, I used ChatGPT 2 years ago. There's a gentleman that I know who explained this to me. He used it 2 years ago and it didn't work well. It was full of hallucination. I wanted to say to him, I was like, have you used ChatGPT 5.2? 5? He says, oh, it's all the same. It's AI. It's not good. Well, once again, we have to be adaptable to the reality that what AI we're using now will continually improve. It's going to be better as we go forward. According to Ethan Mollick, this is the worst AI we're going to experience. Interdependence. This is what I'm talking about, the convergence of the different pesto variables that are creating this acceleration. And this interdependence creates a bit of somewhat perplexity for us. Not talking about perplexity, the AI tool, but we're perplexed. We're like, well, which direction do I go? Do I go this way or do I go this way? Or do I go both ways? It's hard to know because so many things are coming at us at the same time. But this is kind of a point and premise. All of us have to be somewhat fluid. We have to be able to say, I did things like this last year or 6 months ago. I'm maybe doing things very differently 6 months from now, a year from now. Fluidity. All right, let me go to this one real quick. Continuous reimagination. And this is part of what I believe we have to work hard on. We have to not get locked into our silos of education, our disciplines, our experience, or our expertise, or any of those things. We have to be very careful to keep thinking that we have to reimagine even something that we've done well before. Reimagination involves things that you've heard about before: experimenting, learning, unlearning, and then relearning. And the cycle continues. And that's that fluidity, okay? So, all right, I am an associate professor of management. That has an identity. But does that mean the same thing as it meant last year? Or will it be the same thing next year? So we have to maybe reconsider how we define ourselves. What is a professor anyway? Skill reinvention. This is obvious. We're continually trying to upskill and, in some cases, reskill. And organizations have to help us as well by experimenting and changing and helping engage us in the change. Bottom line, transformation is not optional. It is existential. All right, here's some implications. Speaking to you, okay? Transition point 2026. We're not preparing for AI. Here's a news flash. We're not getting ready for AI. While I won't say whom, but I know of people in some organizations and some departments and even some divisions that are preparing for AI. The problem is it's already on the moving train. The train is moving. Now, the good news is that even though the train is moving, trains do stop. So as the train stops, only briefly, that's when you jump on. It's a little analogy. See, it's not like if you're on a plane, you fly the plane and it's gone. All right. Thankfully, I believe that in this age of accelerated transformation with AI as a central component of everything we do, it's not too late to jump in. But once you jump in, you have to recognize that you're going to be swimming constantly. It's not like you're going to go and float, okay? You're not floating. When you're in the water, you're going to have to swim because, full analogy, okay, there's rapids, there's waves, there's a lot of things. There's even riptides in the water that we have to work through. But the only way you can do it is if you're in the water, using the other analogy. You can't swim if you're not in the water. And speaking of swimming, we have to develop our capabilities to swim. We have to not rest on, oh, I know how to swim. No, we may have to do a little backstroke. We may have to do a little breaststroke. All right. And so I'll stop that analogy. But the point is, we have to keep moving, keep moving. And as AIs, as we'll call it, exponential velocity, outpaces our traditional thinking. See, in higher education, where I'm from, we think in semesters. We think fall semester, spring semester. Maybe you make some transitions in the summer. In fact, historically, we've not made a lot of changes between fall and spring because you once you prepare for the academic year. Well, I will raise a question mark about that because how things are changing so quickly, it may not be feasible to wait an academic year before you make modifications in your curriculum, modifications in your classroom, modifications in your textbooks. Many modifications may have to occur sometimes within the semester to continue to be relevant. This is challenging. Trust me. I know. But it is part of this idea of acceleration. Now, with work integrated learning, for me, and I believe probably for you, it's no longer just, okay, you do this so you can help get a job. No, it's an essential, what we'll call laboratory to prepare you for something that I'm terming as the adaptability gap. Let's take a look at what that is. In the age of accelerated transformation, you have this thing of this velocity. Okay, things are moving very fast, we've established. Now, human agency, the lighter blue line there, if you see, is not, that's kind of how we have historically moved. We've moved at our own pace, kind of a steady pace, where the acceleration, which is the white line, is flying. Okay. Now, work integrated learning, where you are in the workplace to see these accelerations, where you see these transformations, you experience these transformations. That's what all students need to have to be ready to be able to transform themselves as they enter the workplace upon graduation. And once they are in the workplace, if they've had the experiences of working through the multiple accelerations and transformations while in school, they are now prepped and ready to do the same thing as they continue on in their careers. I hope that makes some sense to you. You see, AI is at the heart of this. That's why many people call it the AI age. I call it the age of accelerated transformation, but many people say it's the AI age. I call it the AI era. In this era, and the reason why I say AI era is because you know what's coming next? Oh, maybe it's quantum. Or is it AGI? Or is it robotics? You see what I'm. So whatever era we're in, the AI era, I think, is a good definition of it right now, is creating something we'll call structural continuity, right? It is not just something that you go and look up recipes or, wow, I create my travel plans, or, wow, I want to learn about AI by looking it up in, take your pick, Claude, Alexa, ChatGPT, Gemini, take your pick. No, it's much more than that. It is a framework. It is a way of living, working, how organizations function. And that's why AI is in many ways driving this current epoch. We're shifting from just it is a tool to an agent. You've heard it. AI agents. Oh, AI agents are going to take everybody's job. Well, I'm not a believer in that, but we won't spend too much time on that. But yes, AI agents can do work that humans can do. And if you create an agentic framework, perhaps you are having agents work with each other. This is where we talk about the human in the loop, the essential nature of the human in the loop. What's the impact? Well, organizations, and I read some information on Canada, the organizations in Canada are having the same dilemma. They're not seeing these massive productivity gains with the introduction of AI. They're not seeing, the promises being realized. However, they're all saying, not all, but the overwhelming majority are saying that, look, we know this is the future for us. So we are working with AI and we're integrating AI. So, all the way back to our students. If organizations are working with AI, integrating AI, it says absolutely we need to get them out of the classroom and into the workforce so they can experience as organizations wrestle with how to integrate AI and how to get those productivity gains, to get those performance gains, to find those cost savings. Being there when this is happening is you can't teach it. You have to see it and experience it. So let me go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. Here's what's happening. You know this, I know this, but let's remind ourselves of this. You'll have some people like Mr. Amadei over at Anthropic say 50% of white collar jobs are going to be gone in the next 3 years, right? It's always, whenever you hear something from whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or David Amadei or uh, uh, any of those folks, Elon Musk, put an asterisk next to whatever they say. And here's why. I'm a business professor. And if there's one thing I understand about all of these companies, they are in it not to better society. Okay, I'm sorry. I know that's what OpenAI was founded on. I know. But none of these organizations are service organizations. They are in it to win it. We say in it to win it. We're talking about in it to make money. I mean, why are we pushing toward AGI? Okay, somebody talk to Dr. Joshua Bengio and ask him what he thinks about our push to AGI. Right? Well, they are trying to make a profit. If you're a business person, I am a business person, business professor. I'm not angry at you because you're trying to make a profit. But we have to be discerning enough to understand that some of the things they say are a bit self-serving. Because, I mean, how in the heck do you justify the billions of dollars that are flowing to these companies in investment, and they're spending billions of dollars to build data centers? You better have a really compelling argument to say why you need to do this. And so when you hear things like, again, 50% of white collar jobs will be gone in 3 years, I don't know. I don't know exactly. Okay, I'm just one person, but I put a question mark. I would like to see how you know this. So for us, we can look at it more at three levels. Okay. Everyone's task is changing. And I say everyone. People say plumbers. Yes. If you've ever brought a plumber to your house, remember back in the good old days, you used to write a check and you'd hand them a paper check. Hmm. Almost every plumber I've seen, they come with a pad, right? And in that pad, maybe you can stick your credit card in or even swipe your credit card, whatever. All right, this is change in even a plumber's task. And as we're going forward, people in the crafts, carpenters, plumbers, etc., what they are doing is they may not be influenced in the same way that we office people are influenced by AI, but they are integrating it into things like making decisions on how to do certain tasks, how they're using it to identify how to perhaps find the right tool, perhaps the right fit for something. So they are using these tools as well. In other words, their tasks are being effective. And so if you are a college professor, your tasks are being affected. If you are a manager, your tasks are being affected. If you're a marketing person, your tasks are being affected. And when we say affected, that's another word of saying changed. And they will continue to change. You will continue to have to learn, relearn, unlearn, and experiment continually for the foreseeable future in the age of accelerated transformation. Now, the one that bothers us, though, is not so much changing tasks. Most of us recognize that when the workplace, you have to change. You have to change. Just because you did something last year doesn't mean you're going to do the same thing next year. Your task, changing tasks, most of us can work with. But now changing our role is a bit harder. What do I mean by role? All right, as a college professor, I am the expert in the room, right? Well, once upon a time, something called generative AI has arrived, and we can ask the question, am I really the expert, or is it that thing that the students can log into that's the expert? Well, the answer is a little gray, all right? But one thing's for sure, I cannot expect to hand my students work that we did 5 years ago and say, study this because this is the good stuff that I learned 5 years ago and I know it's going to apply today. Well, the students do a few clicks and they can say, that's out of date. Wow, why are you giving us this old stuff? So what is my role as an instructor? And I'm not going to speak for all faculty members, I'm going to speak for myself. Well, my role in the classroom is totally changed. Here's how we start the class. We start the class with log on to your computers. Yes, I teach in a computer lab now. Log on to your computers. All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to start, our first topic is going to be X, okay? Let's do organizational change. All right, I want you to go out to your generative AI tool, your choice, and find what you see it is saying about organizational change. What do you find? Okay, and I have a toolbox where I can simply click on a box, and then I can find, I can call on each student to show their screen, and it can work very well. All right, and I'm gonna speed up here. So if you're wondering what's taking me so long, I'm gonna get going. So in the classroom, my role has changed. I don't start off with a lecture. I start off by engaging them to investigate information. And then what I'm doing is I'm the quality control guy. Because I am a college professor and I'm a learned person, when they find something on the screen that doesn't make sense, I question it. I say, why is that correct? Does anybody else have something different? That one doesn't sound right. Let's try this one over here. Okay, none of those are correct. Let me tell you what I know. Let me show you a book, a reference. So how I'm teaching is very different. Everyone's role is transitioning as well. The last one is the position. That's the one everybody's afraid of, is that eliminate the professor job. And that's the part I don't buy. I don't believe that we're talking about eliminating some positions, obviously. I mean, that's the inevitability. It happens from the beginning. It always happens. But I'm saying that is not our greatest concern. Our greatest concern is for us to adapt to the fact our tasks are changing, our roles are changing, and they're going to continue to change. So why am I talking to you about this? Well, work integrated learning is where they can experience that directly. I'm going to go past this to speed up a bit. Let's talk about competencies. In this age, I believe that we do have some competencies, and this is the durable skills conversation. There's many different groups and organizations that talk about it. Here's my take on it. We know what durable skills are: transferable, people-centered capabilities, relevant across industries and roles, attributes, mindsets, traits, responsibility, patience, empathy. best acquired, yes, to some extent in the classroom, but also in the workplace. Some of the essential ones that I'm going to share with you: adaptive learning agility, critical systems thinking, discernment, judgment, digital and AI fluency, collaborative execution, and change navigation. First one being adaptive learning agility. You got to label it something, right? I mean, this is something that we've always, at least in higher education, promoted. We want people who know how to learn, learning how to learn, not just take a test, write a paper, not that, but be able to look at material, synthesize. Let's use Bloom's taxonomy. Go higher up on the taxonomy, right? Learn. And yes, this is a different skill, unlearn, because some things we create habits for, we have to let go of and recalibrate how we think about what we need to know, what we're learning. And as I always say with this is where organizations can help employees. And oh, by the way, this is where those of you who help the learners who are in the workplace can help as well, to help them to adapt, to show them ways they can adapt. This is one that should be obvious to everyone. It's easy to think about: critical thinking. Now, critical thinking for me is not just judgment. Critical thinking is discernment. What's the difference? Well, judgment is you have some information, you make a decision, right? Discernment is you are really looking at different bits of information and you're comparing these and you're thinking through which one is really best before you make a judgment. See, discernment is an essential skill now, because in the world where AI can give you an answer to everything, you have to be able to know, wait a minute, that sounds good, but it's not true. Wow, that reference looks great, but it's not a real reference. Let me see why it gave me this beautiful reference which does not exist. Discernment becomes a huge skill set. And oh, yes, I think you gain this really in the workplace as you gain experience. Discernment capabilities are hard to teach unless you're in a context where you have to discern. And let's not forget ethics. You see, we can teach ethics. I teach business ethics, but we also have to recognize when we talk about teaching ethics is very difficult because we all have our own ethical frameworks we develop from a variety of sources, experiences, environment, and more, right? However, we can share ethical frameworks, and then people can test those ethical frameworks in context. Again, more reason for work integrated learning. Digital and AI fluency, this is a given. Today, it's not just AI fluency, not just knowing about AI, not just knowing that Claude exists, not just knowing that Perplexity exists, not just knowing that Fanar exists. Okay, well, it is really learning and learning and learning and learning again. And like with me today at the beginning, all right, I didn't know how to solve it. Working with someone who knows how to solve it helps me to solve it. So believe it or not, the next time I now have a framework for solving this problem. And would I have learned that in the classroom? Maybe, maybe not. Would I learn it in context of trying to give an actual real world presentation? Yes. So learning about technology, yes, we can watch YouTube videos, we can do LinkedIn skills, but we have to get out there and really experience it. Last but not least, collaborative execution and change navigation. I preach this to everyone that no one knows it all. I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? No one knows all that's happening in technology. No one knows all the changes that are going on. And we have to work with each other. We have to learn from others. We have to see, oh, you know about this? Well, let's talk about it. And being able to collaborate with each other is essential. We work in teams constantly in the business school. Now, additionally, though, we have to learn to collaborate with technology. That's a new thing. You and I are soon going to be collaborating with AI agents if you're not already doing that. And it isn't it. I refuse to call it sentient or anything like that. It isn't it. It's an algorithm. But working with it, well, guess what? You may find it can be not a companion. I'm not a believer in that. Not a friend. I'm not a believer in that. But it is actually a work colleague. It's one that you can talk to all the time, 24 hours a day. You can, I've talked to people who, when they're jogging, they're talking to their AI teammate. So learning how to work with our teammates is essential. And then one quick point, yes, all of us have to become experts on how to navigate change. So winding to the end here, the will experience in the age of accelerated transformation were, and maybe it's always been this way, but here is the thing. In this age of accelerated transformation, it's even more important for us to not be passive users. I'm going to have my internship so I can put in my resume. No, 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 no. We have to be purposeful architects. We are creating our experience. And now I'm not an architect, so if you're an architect, then don't drop off the call because this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But here's my take on the architect, right? You engage in designing the learning experience. You're creating it, okay? So it's co-creation. It's yes, all of us together co-create the experience, employer, the school, the student co-create learning experience, build competencies that are durable, some of the ones I've talked about and more. Develop proficiency, and that comes through more experience and adapting to the changing conditions that they will experience in the workplace. And then coming back, and this is both the student and us redesigning as we are learning, and the employer to some extent, redesign as we are learning. This purposeful architect, using work integrated learning as friction. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of friction, but some people don't like this, but I know this from sports, is that in sports, you don't win without some challenge in sports, okay? In fact, coaches are funny sometimes. They'll say, we don't mind a loss because a loss teaches us more than a win sometimes. Well, not that coaches want to lose, but it is true. If you lose, a coach has a lot to tell you about what to improve. Where if you win, you think, hey, we're good. So in friction, we're, yes, designing built-in challenges, discomfort, tensions to develop more capabilities among our students. So here's a few action items for you based upon some readings I've done, and maybe you're already doing these things, but let's think about these things together. Ensure that work integrated learning is a practice lab, okay? In the age of accelerated transformation, we want it to be where they are out there and they understand things like when to use or not use AI. AI is not the solution to everything, as some of the billionaires will tell us. It is not the solution. There are still some skills we need to have, and domain knowledge and thinking, decision making, discernment, critical thinking, those things that we have to be able to do, maybe without AI or with AI. This is where we get a chance to practice it before we go live, because learning, as we all know, is both success and sometimes error. You learn from errors sometimes as much as you learn from success. And yes, maybe even say, let's have a AI infused project as part of your your curriculum, part of your experience, right? Make durable competencies necessary, explicit outcomes. Tie in what you should gain from this experience is, and name those things, and have the student reflect on those, have the employer reflect on those, and try to come to some agreement that, hey, at the end of this is what the student will gain. Track and report. Always, we want to measure what they say. What gets measured gets done. So if we can show how this experience is showing a tangible outcome among durable skills, maybe we can continue to justify that we want to have students in this experience. So a few quick tips as I wind to the end. Co-op coordinators, renegotiate your job descriptions. Go out there and try to find roles that maybe described as AI roles. That will benefit the student tremendously. Faculty, I could speak all day on this one. This is speaking to myself. We want to not look at people who get A's, B's, and C's, but we want to look at, all right, what is it that they're learning? Now, that sounds obvious, right? But we want to really focus and drill down on the learning and less on the grade and the attainment, because what matters, and it always has been the case, is what they learn. And finally, for program leaders, create perhaps something called AI reflection circles. And this is where, when they come back, they add to the collective wisdom of the group. Maybe you do all these things already. I just wanted to throw those out there as things that I think can be done in the age of accelerated transformation. So, in summary, let's move. Let's move with the age of accelerated transformation. Don't be that person. I'm sure if you're on this call, you're not that person, but we know people like this who are just trying to say, okay, let it pass. It will pass. It's the end of education. It's just, oh, okay, well, you know what? I've lived a long time and I've seen the end come many times. And this is not the end. Okay. Yeah, I know there's somebody out there saying when AGI gets here, that's going to be the end of us. Well, okay, it's not here yet. And until that time, I'm going to be one of those people say, let's move, let's make it happen. Yes, it's not dismissing all the negatives about AI. Yes, there's a laundry list of negatives associated with AI. But you know what? There's also a laundry list of positives. So we can understand and recognize and work on the negatives, but we cannot miss the opportunities. And so, be that guide, augment with AI experiences, ensure work integrated learning, develop these competencies we've talked about and more. And yes, you be that voice. Don't be silent. Tell everyone that it is essential for the future workforce to have work integrated learning experiences. That's my opinion, and I'm not taking it back. So, a few things for you to read in your spare time. Well, reading, I'm still old school. I have books. Here's some books that you might find interesting. And questions? Hey,
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for that great talk. We because we're moving along, and I want to thank you for delivering it after some tech difficulties. I really appreciate your smooth transition. I We have one question, and I think it's a really important one. What is one tangible thing you would recommend us in work integrated learning to do? Like one adaptation we should make in our curriculum or in our placements that we should execute right now to be able to facilitate the learning of these competencies?
yes. First thing is identify. Identify specifically what you want, a placement, let's say the placement uh, that you want them to gain. Work with the student and help them understand the reason for the why. Then work with the employer to say, hey, can we get these things in this experience? Maybe not all, but at least some of them. And then with that student, keep in contact. Say, how you doing? Are you learning these things? And then from there, when they finish, bring them back and rake all their knowledge from them so that we can add it to the next experience. Does that make sense?
Of course, Kevin. Thank you so much for this great presentation. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen. If you guys have any more pressing questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And we're going to start to move on to the second section of this AI symposium. So if I could have all the panelists turn on their screen, I'm going to transition us over. And thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. It's wonderful hearing from you. So, we are shifting now from the strategic and visionary to the practical and applied. One of the questions we hear most from our members is what tools are out there that can actually help support them do this work and that are worth my time? Our next segment is designed to answer exactly that. We brought together three organizations that are building tech tools specifically relevant to the WIL ecosystem. Each panelist will share a brief overview of their work, and then we'll move into moderated discussion about implementation, impact, and what practitioners should be asking before they adopt any tools. And so, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do the bio, then I'm going to close my screen and let each presenter do their pitches. So I'm going to first introduce Imran, who's the co-founder and director of strategic partnerships at InStage, a Canadian voice AI platform designed to scale career readiness and personalized support in higher education. Imran has over a decade of experience in experiential education and edtech innovation, and he partners with institutions across Canada to co-design AI-powered solutions that expand access while preserving human connection. His focus is on helping career service teams using technology to scale personalized support, identify hidden student needs, and redirect staff capacity towards high impact coaching. He is also the host of the Future of Higher Education podcast. It's great to have you, Imran. So happy that you're here. I'm going to go through all the introductions so everybody knows who they are. Next is Iman, who oversees a national team of senior advisors at ICTC. That's the Information and Communications Technology Council. Iman is a seasoned leader with over a decade of experience bridging academia, industry, and government to drive innovation in Canada's digital economy. He holds a PhD in electrical engineering, and his career spans strategic partnerships, program development, and business growth across sectors like AI, clean techs, and advanced manufacturing. Before ICTC, he also had senior roles at MyTax, leading national industrial academic research collaborations. Iman, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. And as our members would know, MyTax very well. So rounding out our panel is Ash. Ash is the founder and CEO of Intern Insider. He's a fifth-year computer science student at UBC who's completed multiple co-op terms himself. During his own job search, Ash realized the hardest part wasn't preparation or motivation, it was access. Quality opportunities were scattered, time sensitive, and often invisible until it was too late. So he built Intern Insider to systematically surface opportunities earlier and reduce the information gap students face. Today, Intern Insider supports tens of thousands of students, partners with post-secondary institutions across Canada to strengthen WIL outcomes. Thank you so much, Ash, for being here. A true successful co-op story. So I'm going to yield the floor to panelist number one, Imran. And I'm going to ask everybody to close their cameras and let Imran get to work to show us his tools.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, Desmine, and thank you everyone for being here. I see so many in the chat. Thanks for being part of the session and for welcoming InStage back. For those of you who know us, for those of you who don't, my name is Imran Muna. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of strategic partnerships at InStage, and we have been working with institutions across Canada, as Jasmine mentioned, for almost 10 years now. So excited to use this opportunity today to talk a bit about InStage, but share some of the work we have been doing collaboratively with these partners across the country. So again, for those of you who haven't met us before, InStage is a Canadian company focused on scaling career readiness in higher ed. And over the last few years, we have helped deliver over 300,000 AI-powered career readiness sessions. We are focusing on supporting the career journey through some of the major milestones we know students go through. That starts with AI-powered conversations around career exploration. These are used as a primer to help students brainstorm some of the career paths they might be interested in. So when they have a discussion with a career counselor, they're coming with some ideas and can deeper dive into that discussion. We also focus on job search check-ins, which is all about accountability for us to make sure we are encouraging students throughout the job search period, but also letting them know about resources you have on campus. The system can be primed to let them know about upcoming career fairs and resources they can use at your career centers themselves. So it works again collaboratively with these programmings. Next, we have our resume analyzer. This is about tailoring jobs for a specific position, but also it enables you to customize this and integrate it into WIL curriculum. It is compatible with your specific grading rubric, so it aligns with what they are being taught in, again, the programming. Today, we'll focus a lot on our mock interview tool. This is being used by thousands of students across the country as well, and is all about taking real jobs, putting them into a format where students can practice like it's the real thing so they can build confidence in the workplace. And I'll share a quick video in a second here where you can hear some insights from staff and students using that tool. And lastly, we have a guided reflection conversation, which is specifically designed to support students through experiential learning opportunities like WIL and like co-op, so they can talk about what's happening and give us a sense of what kind of challenges they're having during that experiential learning and what kind of goals they're working towards. So what I'll do now is share a quick video so you can hear some insights from these partner organizations who have really helped shape and form InStage, and then I'll be happy to answer some questions as well.
InStage is being used to prepare students for the conversations that will shape their future, helping them practice interviews, review resumes, and reflect with an AI guide that responds in real time, like at the world's largest co-op school, the University of Waterloo.
In an ideal world, it would be having real live employers practicing with students over and over again, that kind of thing, but that's really difficult to organize, especially in a program such as Waterloo where the scale is so big. So how can we have an experience where students can practice an interview, really get some of those wrinkles out of the way, and they build their confidence and they get the opportunity to try different things? InStage provides that.
The feedback from InStage is phenomenal, and it definitely impacted and helped prepare me for my next interview.
For students like Maggie, InStage made the difference, helping her stand out from more than 1,000 applicants and land her dream job as an emergency call taker. InStage helps each student reflect on their unique journey while giving educators insight into growth and readiness across thousands, like at America's largest co-op university, Northeastern.
This is a significant time saving, and the way we frame this for Northeastern is all that time saved in, if we were trying to replicate this experience, those check-in calls as a human with a very small team of 3 advisors, it would have taken so much time. And so thinking about all that time saving allows the advisors to focus their advising on the real human conversations that need to happen between our students and them.
InStage, I mean, I'm not sure if it's been seen by the kings and queens of Europe, but I know it's been seen by the premier of the province and various ministers and other MPPs and lots of other folks. It's a terrific technology.
This is InStage, celebrated by institutions, recognized by industry, and built for student success.
All right, folks, it's always a pleasure to see one of our earliest partners there, Seneca Polytechnic, and David Agnew's testimonial, because that's from many years ago when we first began this journey. But last year, we actually spent time in London, England, talking about the work being done in Canada, talking about these partner organizations and how these collaborations have led to the development of this technology. So it's almost a bit of a premonition he had many years ago, because now we can tell him we have in fact shared the work we're doing here with many of the schools that I see in the chat with the kings and queens of Europe. So we have gone on to share this work we're doing around the world. And again, thank you for having us here today to talk about these different ways that AI can support the student journey at these critical milestones. Looking forward to answering some questions and being part of this conversation. So I'll stop the screen share here and look forward to chatting here now with Yasmin.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated that video. It was really engaging, Imran. I'm
Oh,
gonna
good.
I'm gonna ask a question. InStage uses voice AI to scale career readiness. Can you walk us through what that actually looks like for a student and for a career counselor team? What changes for them day to day when they do this, and what might be the costs associated as someone who would be managing a situation in lower resource time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we constantly hear is that with these larger program sizes where there might be thousands of students, maybe in first year, going through career prep programming to prepare for something like a co-op or workplace work integrated learning experience, there isn't the kind of time that staff would want to meet individually with each student and have them practice for something like an interview as many times as they might want. So in traditional models of interview prep, for instance, we've heard a variety of things put in place. We have heard staff try to organize one-on-one meetings with every student. It quickly becomes unmanageable. We've heard of written interview assignments where students will write written responses to interview questions. And that doesn't have, the engagement that we want. It doesn't create the realism we want to prepare them for. So when we work with teams, what using voice AI essentially does is it extends the capability of that career service team, which we know are usually small and mighty teams trying to serve, a gigantic population of students. So what we're seeing now, for instance, at the University of Waterloo, is with this kind of an assignment in place, where students are interacting with AI characters that sound realistic and are asking them questions about jobs they are personally interested in, the engagement rate in these assignments is jumping. We have an article about the work being done with that school specifically, where they talk about how their assignment engagement rate jumped from 46 to 80% by introducing this type of interactivity. And we're seeing the amount of engagement from students increase as well. They will typically practice in these scenarios 5 to 7 times, which now you can imagine would completely compound the challenge for teams trying to provide that with individual practice sessions. But the kind of piece that rounds that out comes from work we're doing with the University of Toronto, where they said what this ends up doing is it gives students this opportunity and this safe place to practice. But then what it allows staff to do is actually have more conversations with their students at a deeper level because they've taken care of some of that low-hanging fruit. They've all practiced introducing themselves, and now they're meeting with staff so that they can get to know each other and guide students to say, okay, we understand the skills you're interested in and the things you'd like to do on a daily basis. Maybe this specific company might be a good fit for you versus helping them with that early stage prep that you can leverage a tool like this for. So that's practically what we're seeing happening. Oh, sorry, I got you on mute there, Jasmine.
It's my first Zoom meeting. Sorry.
Oh,
Like,
you're doing great.
no,
That
I'm,
was
I'm kidding.
fantastic support early on and great presentation, Dr. Jones.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sure Dr. Jones appreciates it. So you talk about hidden student needs. What kind of needs are surfacing that career services teams weren't catching before, and how does that change what practitioners prioritize? That was something you kind of alluded to in your last question.
Yes, one of the most interesting examples of that comes from Northeastern University and the reflection-based tool that we're using there. So prior again to an opportunity like this, where students can talk about what's happening on co-op with a responsive AI character, students would be writing about what is happening during a co-op experience. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that format. There are written reflections that would need to take place at various points throughout the co-op experience. What the team told us was happening is that students might write about something negative happening in the workplace, and it would take a significant amount of time to recognize that as they read through manually each one of these reflections. So when we collaborated with them, one of the first things they asked us to do was flag any concerning comments so that they could be immediately acted upon. So now what you have is an opportunity for students to still write a reflection if they want to, but alternatively, they can take a 10-minute phone call and talk through a very similar reflection-based format. However, now if they say something like, I was asked to do something in the workplace I'm not comfortable with, we can flag that and it will immediately notify a staff member so they can intervene. They won't have to read through, the first 500 reflections before that information is surfaced. So we can really be proactive about supporting students. That's one example that comes to mind, Jasmine.
That's an excellent example. Actually, it alludes back to something we talked about with David Evan Harris about the slipperiness of these conversations evolving into a chat psychosis. Like when you're asking someone or even an AI about why didn't I get this job and how quickly that can evolve into an interpersonal relationship. Just very fascinating. I'm
It
gonna
is.
ask, yeah, would you like to reply?
Well, one thing we're seeing positive come from that is that students are, it takes a little bit of time to get comfortable with the system, but when they do, they start to recognize that it can actually help brainstorm for some of the goals they're setting. So we've had students say they want to find an employment opportunity after co-op with the company they're doing the co-op at. And so they'll state something like that in an early part of the conversation. And these are usually staged as, 3 to 4 phone calls that happen over the course of a semester, for instance. In the midpoint phone calls, the system will remember that and say, hey, you mentioned you had this goal to meet with your manager and talk about opportunities for when the co-op is done. Have you done that? And as they get more comfortable, they'll say, no, well, they're a bit intimidating and I'm not sure how to approach them. And so we have a student, for instance, who had said this. They went on to brainstorm, sending a LinkedIn message opposed to trying to approach that boss in person. That was what was causing some concern for them. But then they ended up scheduling a coffee chat and spent about an hour together talking about employment opportunities for when the co-op was done. So there's an interesting thing happening there, I agree, where they develop a comfort with the system that can lead to some really positive things. And on the flip side, if they do say something that needs human intervention, we can flag it because it's not intended to take on that role of a staff member. We just want to let them know, hey, this student needs your support.
I think there's an excellent question from Michelle in the chat. It says at InStage, how are you reducing bias and hallucinations?
I think one of the things that's important to kind of frame around InStage is it is a question sort of based experience. So we are looking to collect insights from students, not necessarily provide advice. So I think that in itself reduces the risk of a hallucination because it's about working with staff to figure out what kind of questions we need to ask students so that staff can support them. It's a collaborative approach there. We're not taking on the role of necessarily providing students with suggestions the way a staff member would. What we're doing is working with staff members to say, what kind of things do you need to know from a student? And can we collect that in a more interactive format than having them fill out a survey? Because as they talk through it, as they go through a reflection framework that feels conversational, we can collect much deeper level information without having to provide, a real-time response that could be at risk of hallucination. So I think it's the formatting that has helped us avoid that, Michelle.
And and I'm going to finish with this question with Michael, and then we'll have you back to answer any other questions that participants have. So don't be afraid to pop them in the chat or the Q&A. So Michael asks, how is data protected? A student response is protected.
The high level answer to that, we of course have detailed conversations between our IT team and the school's tech team. High level answer that helps put people at ease is we are a Canadian company. The data is stored in Canada. We don't use student data to train the system. So those are the two things that usually come to mind is the data in the country and is it used to train the system? And so yes, it's stored in the country. No, it's not used to train the system. And so those are the two answers I can kind of give with the time frame we have here. But that's always a conversation that comes up and one we're happy to have with the IT team.
Okay, excellent, Imran. I'm going to ask you to close your camera as we transition to the next panelist, but please stick around for other questions from the audience.
No problem at all. I'll turn that off here and I'll put a link to our AI Responsible Principles Guide.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now I'd like Iman, if Iman would be willing to turn on his camera. I'm going to yield the floor to you, Iman.
Thank you so much. A quick audio check. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, yes.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. So I am going to start sharing shortly. Just a second. Perfect. Excellent. So hopefully you guys can see my screens fine. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. the conversation today. Excellent presentation by my colleague at InStage, and then of course Dr. Jones as well. And I feel like it's a sort of a nice transition into what I'm going to talk a little bit about in terms of ICTC, who we are and what we do as a convener, a convenient organization, just bringing one soft tool essentially to the ecosystem, which is serving to basically act as a bridge between the students and the employment pathways, which is our work integrated learning solution, essentially, complemented by a range of other activities that ICTC has been doing over the past 30 years of its history. I loved some of the segments in InStage presentation as well around interactiveness, the role of human, basically, engagement and interactions, which is something that we clearly see in our industry signals as well, which I'll be more than happy to share during the Q&A phase. But a little bit about ICTC itself as an organization, Information and Communication Technologies Council of Canada, or ICTC, is a national not-for-profit center of expertise operating across Canada from coast to coast and active for the past 30 years. We are basically serving as Canada's trusted source of forward-looking research, policy advice, as well as innovation and capacity building programs that come to serve a variety of elements of workforce development, starting very early with some solutions at K-12, all the way to mid-career professionals with solutions around upskilling and reskilling. And collectively speaking, the mission and goal for ICTC is to strengthen Canada's digital advantage in a global economy, essentially. Within ICTC, of course, we believe that digital is the economy and economy is digital. That's up and coming and emerging, as all the data indicates, essentially. You just saw one lively example of AI and how it's coming to change the recruitment activities. And we see that basically impact across the board, across digital technologies and different sectors, essentially, as they go through digital disruptions. And as a neutral convener, essentially, with a track record of successful collaborations across federal and provincial ministries and a large volume of companies, both vendors on the larger side, as well as SME clients, we hope to basically be able to deliver some programming that comes to impact basically our workforce development for the future, but also through the course of our research and policy activities, publish a wide range of articles and publications, data and insights rooted into industry signals that hopefully would come handy when our policymakers look into establishing new policies around workforce development for the future, diverting funding into these projects and programs. So I encourage you to visit our website, the research and policy side of our activities, bulk of our reports that are in and around different topics related to digital technologies, digital transformation, economic forecasting, are available online for public consumption that speak to different signals that we see in the market, ranging from youth unemployment to economic forecasting and digital technology forecasts for, say, the province of Alberta versus Quebec versus Canada, and how these provinces are faring in this basically up and coming world of changing technologies. But one of the other elements of ICTC's activities, as I alluded to in the initial introductory slide, is that we do take a condensed basically version of these reports and in these policy advisements and sort of translating them into some programming and programmatic interventions. Over the past some 20 years, ICTC has engaged in a variety of program design, concept development, and program delivery activities across Canada that range from building Canada's pipeline of future tech talent, starting as early as K-12, working with the schools, the school divisions, about 100,000 students every year, about 8,000 teachers and educators that we work with directly and engage with directly, benefit from a wide range of e-learning as well as hands-on learning opportunities around a variety of digital technologies, from cybersecurity to AI to even quantum technologies and semiconductors as the backbone of the AI economy. Moving into the post-secondary level of students, we do offer and deliver programming that helps bridges the gap between those students who are finishing basically their studies and as they get ready to move into industrial roles, to also working with global talent as they land in Canada. how to best integrate within Canadian digital economy by offering them a range of basically services around connecting them to the employer's community, supporting them with a variety of training opportunities, as well as reference checks and all those soft services and settlement services as well. We also offer some services to the existing workforce, equipping Canada's workforce with some in-demand digital skills. So as we've seen transitions in some situations, upskilling, in some situations, re-skilling of workers within one sector to move into another sector, the digital sector, or even remaining within their sectors but adopting to the shifts and changes of the AI economy becomes a paramount important activity. And at ICTC, we have taken initiative in offering opportunities to basically help those workers and those employers either re-skill for career transitioners or upskill for those who are remaining in their roles to better perform and adapt in digital roles. And obviously, in working directly with businesses, we basically try to enable them by offering talent sort of support, connecting them to the BSIs, connecting them to the students, and hopefully help with capacity building within the businesses by offering similar trainings, upskilling and reskilling to corporate decision makers as well around how to best incorporate, for example, a generative AI tool in their day-to-day business, essentially, and what are some of the ramifications for that. But on top of that, everything is layered with a rich LMI, labor market intelligence portfolio within ICTC that we try to bring front and center to every decision-making activity that we do and support essentially our programmatic activities. One program that I wanted to specifically highlight today in the portfolio of programming that we deliver within ICTC is obviously our work integrated learning opportunity, or as we call it, WIL Digital. We are obviously similar to our colleagues at CEWIL Canada, a member of this larger convening and delivery ecosystem of programs, one of the largest, in fact, of private sector or employer-facing talent programs in Canada that offers wage subsidies to employers who are thinking about hiring students in a digital economy roles, essentially. The portfolio is an expansive portfolio of over 26,000 of such opportunities that have been created just in the past 3 years, with over 5,000 companies, predominantly SMEs. This is particularly important, building on what my colleague at InStage already messaged about student readiness to get into the jobs as they get close to graduation. And some of it I would also try to touch during the Q&A session, hopefully, if we get to those points. These sort of bridge opportunities to arm students with some experiential learning and experiences, hands-on experiences with companies are becoming increasingly important to bridge the gap between graduation and that first job, essentially. That unemployment gap for the youth has been increasing, as you guys might have noticed over the years. And we would like to think of it as a very key solution with demonstrated success that could come and help bridging that gap. We sort of offer a bit of a wraparound support to our students as well, building on what colleagues at InStage mentioned in terms of some of the core support activities they do around prepping students for interviews, activities in and around job search. We do offer a lighter version of those also facilitated, but also we focus a lot more on the core tech skills based on the industry signals that we receive from our large volume of employer ecosystem about what are some of the technology trends of the day, what are some of the core or baseline skills that the students coming to these companies need to possess these days in order to be a successful contributor to the projects. And we then act against those priorities and designing a variety of e-learning pathways for our students as they try to embark on those experiential learning opportunities. So they get into these positions with some structural backbone of knowledge and expertise to better perform in those roles. And some of these opportunities also offer a pathway to certification and added sort of micro-credentialing on top of their core academic careers, as well as the experiential learning opportunities. So together between these e-learning opportunities as well as the experiential learning opportunities, the hope is that we can convene the ecosystem and the students in a way that become basically more effective operators for the companies and shorten that timeline between graduation and that first job, which is a key critical component of the career building exercise. That's just a little bit of a high level about ICTC and just one highlighted program. And I'll leave you with my contact information, and I trust that the slides will also be shared by colleague at CEWIL Canada. Happy to take any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iman. I wanted to actually ask you a question. We just had the talk from Dr. Jones, who talked about the age of accelerated AI, and you also talked about youth unemployment. And you have a background in clean tech and advanced manufacturing that have had transformational time periods as well. So, what are the lessons from these other sectors and how they navigated this major technology transition that the WIL community should be learning from right now?
Absolutely. So, of course, looking both at the employer community that basically recruits the students quite actively. So we have signals from them refreshed every cycle, complemented with live LMI signals as well that we collect broadly as a whole in the country. What we're observing across sectors is that we are not basically, and the sectors are not responding to AI as a tech trend anymore. Maybe it would have been that 3 years ago when there was the hype of AI development, but more so they are responding to it as a labor market restructuring force, essentially. So the pivot and the transformation, I would say, is much more consequential. Now, to give you a little bit of a sense about the signals that we are seeing, which is again cross-sectoral, we are seeing, and we have seen over the past couple of years in particular, that while the core AI skills and the requirements in the job postings are growing, the core business skills as it relates to the needs of those sectors are growing just as fast, in fact, faster. So if you're looking at a role that is AI adjacent in our terminologies, you see prevalence of core business skills, operational management, basically risk management, and all those things as it relates to the sector are basically going almost growing twice or 3 times faster than your core AI skills. The signal basically is that just that entry level bar has risen essentially from where it was 4 years ago. Now, if you're a new entrant to the market in any of those sectors, but particularly the ones that you singled out, we see that in clean tech, in energy, in advanced manufacturing, in finance, as well as in health, that baseline has gone up. So to some degree, the industry signals that in pivoting away from posting for roles with 3 to 5 years, under 3 years of experience, more so towards the roles in between 3 to 5 years of experience. So we see a decline in the first category and a rise in the second category. But when we look closer into the nature of the job posting, we don't necessarily agree that like the 3 to 5 year is a hard requirement that cannot be met by, say, a recent graduate, a new entrant to the market. Is really just that baseline AI literacy that has to be there, but then also complemented with some baseline business skills as well, which is what we believe could be sort of bridged using a WIL experience, essentially.
Oh, fascinating. That was a great response. In the honor of time, I might ask that we switch panelists, but I would ask you to stay so we can ask a few more pointed questions for ICTC at the end. So
thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask Ash to turn on his camera, please. And Carolyn, I want you to know I see your question in the chat. I think it's a great question that we're going to ask all the panelists. And even me, I have a comment on this one if you would be so kind as to allow me to answer. But Ash, this is your time now. I'm going to close my camera and yield the floor.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Yasmin. I'll go ahead and share my screen to get things started. Let's see. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sweet. Well, thank you for the introduction, Yasmin, and for having me here today. I'm Ash. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Intern Insider and a current fifth-year computer science student at UBC. I'm excited to be here with you all today to tell you about Intern Insider and how we are making internship opportunities easier to see and access. And before we get into it, I want to apologize. My slides aren't as nice as others. I'm not very good with slides. With that said, let's get started. First thing I want to talk about is actually the WIL problem. We all know WIL is great. It helps students better prepare to enter the workforce, and so do the students. Students know that as well. But the biggest problem is students aren't getting co-op jobs. As a result of economic changes over the past few years, and with AI advancements, hiring trends have shifted a lot. What we see is that job postings or co-op postings are open for much shorter periods of time. As the man mentioned, the skills are changing. Companies require new skills, or there's just a big shift in terms of what they look for, and the bar has also risen. And one of the biggest problems is that opportunity discovery is fragmented. Jobs are posted all across the place, which is problematic both for students and for job developers in university. The current job sourcing is a very manual process. People are searching LinkedIn, they're searching Indeed, they're searching job aggregators and all sorts of different places, spending hours scrolling through reposted jobs, fake postings, inaccurate posting dates, and all the good stuff. So I started thinking about this problem 3 years ago when I was looking for my first co-op job. Every day, I would spend hours searching for co-op on the university's co-op board, but also externally on LinkedIn and Indeed, as I wanted to simply apply to more jobs. And every day I would ask myself, man, I wish I could just go to one place and figure out what are all the new computer science jobs posted today in Canada. And that is the exact question that we try to answer at Intern Insider. What we do is we track 200,000 companies' career pages every 15 minutes. So the moment a job goes up, we know about it. And the moment it goes down, we mark it as expired. And one thing that we do is we use now AI to vet the jobs. The problem with just doing an open search on the internet is when you look up for intern, you get internal relations people. You see all sorts of different roles, fake postings. And university co-op boards do the vetting and give you high quality job, but there's not enough scale. So what if you took the best of both worlds? You search for new opportunities at the speed and scale of internet, but at the quality, and the jobs are getting vetted at the quality of career centers at universities. So we took all these jobs that we found, this database of real-time opportunities across Canada and the US, and which, if you put it in front of students, that's a great resource for them to go and apply to jobs just as soon as the job is released. And for universities and governments, this database serves as the resource to look at to see how are hiring trends changing across industries. You no longer have to wait for the end of the year report to know what's happening. Instead, at real time, you know what skills are in demand across which industries and how are the trends changing. And now in the hands of a job developer, you don't no longer have to go through LinkedIn and Indeed and put in all this manual effort just to figure out what jobs are new. And let me run you guys through a scenario. I'm a job developer at a university, and I want to see what are the new jobs in Ontario. And I want to find student position to put it in my co-op board, which requires also finding a contact for this company. I go on LinkedIn, I go on Indeed, I scroll for a few hours, maybe I found an opportunity, and now I have to go to that job to figure whether it is actually new and what the issues with it are. And let's say the job is vetted now. Now I have to spend hours finding the right contact, maybe spending thousands of dollars to go to career fairs to just go and get in contact with recruiters. Now, let me change you how we are changing that. Let me show you how we're changing that Intern Insider. So this is a view that we currently have for our B2B university partners. They come on this platform and they can filter through all the new listings in Canada and the US by the location, the majors the students study. So this was a big thing for me as a computer science student. I always only look for software and backend and full stack jobs, when in reality, there are many other roles, such as IT roles, analyst roles, and other jobs that are easier to get, but will help me get closer to my end goal. And additionally, the industry the company operates in, and a bunch of other cool filters, but I'll skip through that part. And you see, like, these are all the new jobs in Ontario for the past few days. Let's take this company, and I saw this job, compliance analyst summer student, and with a click of a button, I can see who the recruiters are, I can view their emails, and this is how you can do job development these days. You no longer have to rely on scrolling on all these platforms, spending hours and hours finding what the new jobs are, and also now spending hours and thousands of dollars to find the right contacts. This way, you can save time and put that time towards building meaningful relations with the companies and to help your students upskills with the data that comes from all the jobs that we track. We launched this last year, and in the previous year, we partnered with UBC, University of Guelph, and Northeastern University. And this year so far, we've already began partnering with University of Toronto, University of Fraser Valley, and Manitoba, and are talking to a couple of other cool students as well. So to sum it up, we know that we can clearly see that there is a big demand for a solution like this. We also have a platform for students directly where we send a weekly newsletter to 150,000 students, and we have almost 10,000 students paying for access to this database. Coming from a student's perspective, like me sharing my view of things and my peers, the main thing that students want are good and easy access to high quality postings. And with better data comes better outcomes and benchmarking, which also aligns with CEWIL's goals of equality, equity, and accountability as we make all these job opportunities available to all students from all schools and all backgrounds, and universities with different resources. Some bigger schools have huge co-op teams, some have smaller teams, but with this, everyone can do job development how they're meant to do. And thank you.
Excellent job, Ash. I really appreciated Intern Insider. And here at CEWIL Canada, we love seeing a co-op individual see a problem, see a solution, and potentially impact the co-op and work integrated learning ecosystem. So I have a question for you. I see you've partnered with a multitude of universities. What are the immediate tangible benefits that they talk to or speak to, or you believe that would happen in these work integrated learning offices?
Right. The first thing that comes up is employers are finding, universities are finding a lot of new roles from employers that they had never seen before. A statistic from all the jobs that we track is that we found about 50% of the jobs we find are never posted to LinkedIn or Indeed or anywhere else. So these are jobs from Canadian companies in Canada that are going unseen. Universities don't see them, students don't see them either. So the biggest thing that we've done for universities is to kind of bridge that gap and also help universities save tons of time not having to manually source new roles, and also tons of money by not having to spend a lot of money to just host different events just to get an email.
And how do you feel like it impacts the student? Is there elements of agency, dignity, and finding work that you feel are impacted this way?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Like, how do you feel like using Intern Insider affects the student?
Right. So this comes from, I guess, my own perspective as a student. The issue with all the existing platforms out there is that none of them are built for students, besides your university's co-op board, which at the scale that demand from the student side is growing, like they're not growing at the same rate. Students want more jobs than there are available in co-op boards. So one thing that is a very common experience with the current systems is students are very, very frustrated by constantly getting rejected, hearing about postings late, and missing postings. And the best thing that we've done for students is to not only show them the job postings as soon as they're released, but show them small companies that they've never seen before, that they actually have a much better chance of landing. Because by just doing an open search, you see all the big companies, but you don't see any of the smaller companies who are willing to work with students and help them grow.
We have a comment actually from Dr. Kevin Jones. He says, Ash, a centralized database of internship opportunities is a great idea. It would be wonderful if there was an international internship database for students from the US, or maybe even a US one. I would try to get my students to seek opportunities in different countries, he says, in Canada.
Yeah.
What would be your likelihood of developing into this market? Now, this is a speculative question, but would you like become global or go international?
100%. Yeah, currently we track US and Canada. So we are in North America, those two countries, because I guess that was the immediate need for all the students in Canada and America. But this year we actually plan on expanding to UK, potentially Australia, and other places in Europe. With the system we built, frankly, it is quite easy for us to expand. It's just changing a few things, but more so what we want to do is we want to first completely cover North America and from there expand to other regions.
And how does Intern Insider scan and filter out fake jobs from getting picked up by AI? by the AI.
Correct. Right. So there is a hierarchy of things our AI checks for. Well, first thing, is this a student position? Does it offer a real learning experience for students? A Something that I saw was a bakery intern, personally. So that's the type of role that our AI is kind of like told to, well, not that role specifically, but it understands that there is no actually valuable experience for students. Well, there is value in working at a bakery shop, don't get me wrong, but it understands what the right skills for students are and their skills that they need to learn. That is the layer that we have. And another thing is our AI understands what a legitimate company looks like. So if the company posting a job has one follower on LinkedIn, and as a part of this role, which is an unpaid internship, you get a 50% equity at their company, it is quite clear that this does not match the defined standards of what a student position is in terms of like co-op and will.
Excellent. Melissa asks a question. She says, where do the jobs come from if you're not using Indeed LinkedIn? Do you scan employer websites or employers have to sign up with you? So I
Employer
think,
websites.
yeah, I
Yeah,
believe that.
we started thinking about what is the single source of truth with what opportunities are live and what isn't. Employers post all their jobs on their website and then go on to distribute them across different sources. So if you're tracking those sources, you get duplicate jobs, you miss jobs, you get inaccurate dates. But what we do is we directly track the source, being their websites.
And what do you do with the malicious or like, because sometimes employers post job postings without the intent of filling them. What do you do with constant repostings in your AI system?
We have if the same job is reposted with where you can the job description is pretty much very similar, the titles are the same, and you can our AI is to so there we have our existing database and it understands what are all the jobs that we have already found within what time frame. So there are certain guards defined, such as if the same job at the same location, same title, same description appears within this, let's say a 1 month period, a 1 month window, then it understands that this job is likely a repost.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask actually all the presenters, including the panelists and Dr. Kevin Jones, to turn on their cameras again. I hope everyone's still here. Yes, excellent. So I believe Iman already answered in the chat, but we had an excellent question from Carolyn, which I'll just start off with, and then we'll start to do more direct questions. So, Carolyn asks, what are your thoughts on the new research that is coming out from neuroscientists like Dr. Jared Cooney, Horvath, on the correlations between the widespread introduction of educational technology in K to 12, dropping scores on every cognitive measure? How might technology interfere with the development of foundational skills? And how can we ensure that we account for this when introducing new technology into the classroom? And Iman, if you would like to verbalize and lead into
Sure,
this.
absolutely. Absolutely. Indeed, that's a very important research. Thank you so much for Caroline for raising that one. It does speak to essentially an unstructured use of technology. It's not expansive. It's basically case-based, but it's also backed by other studies from OECD and other places in that the unfiltered and unmanaged use of a screen or too much use of devices in classroom is indeed hurting essentially learning, particularly when it comes to AI. Basically outsourcing the cognitive tasks too early could become an Achilles heel essentially for our students. The key is that in all those failed situations is when you let the device take the driver's seat in education as opposed to the pedagogy and the teachers. And that's why, at least in our regime of trainings, as you notice in my presentation, we have a mass population of educators that we train first alongside the students. And so it's really the key is training the trainer. That's number one. And number two, in applying AI skills and bringing AI or other technologies, cybersecurity, for example, to the classroom, we try to bring them while basically and deliver those trainings while we are also empowering the students to practice human skills, teamwork, problem solving. The device is just there as a support mechanism on a fairly limited and teacher-led and teacher-managed way. And it is in that manner that we have seen definitely improved outcomes, essentially.
Perhaps from a different perspective, Imran or Ash, who are using AI to actually facilitate more critical skills, what would be your perspective here?
Sure. I think one of the untapped uses of this sort of technology right now is the ability to tailor the learning experience to the student. I think the reason students might lean on a technology to do the work for them is they're not interested in the context of what they're learning. And an example that comes to mind for me is I used to tutor high school students when I was in university, teaching them functions and advanced functions. And when you're trying to teach a concept like acceleration to a high school student who might not be that interested in mathematics or doesn't plan to pursue math in higher education, it can feel abstract. But as I would get to know these students on a one-on-one basis, you would find out some of them are interested in snowboarding. And I could say, well, acceleration is what's happening when you're going down the hill to hit a jump. And if you don't have enough speed, you won't be able to do the trick you're doing. And suddenly you could see the lights turning on for them. Now, I think the challenge we've always had is there are thousands of students. You can't necessarily individualize the context for every single student. That would have taken me hours to learn about that student on a personal basis. But what we're doing now, even with technologies like InStage, is we're making it so that, for instance, the interview they're practicing for, all students don't need to practice for the same interview. We don't need to have that standardized approach because we can individualize it now. So I think they're less likely to want to circumvent the learning because, well, now they're interviewing for a job they're interested in. So they're understanding the same core concepts, but in a context that's interesting for them. So I think that's going to be something interesting to see evolve is providing a context for these core concepts and learnings that is genuinely interesting to the student, and individualizing the approach that way, if that makes sense.
Ash, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like similar to what Ran said. In job, in applying to jobs, the biggest disconnect for students and where they lose motivation is all they do is they see job applications. They don't even really like read through the job to understand it that well. They make a resume using ChatGPT. They throw it out there. And because these applications, not much effort goes into it, students aren't like, as a recruiter, when you read a resume that was generated by AI with no passion behind it, they understand that this job was applied to for the sake of being applied to rather than out of care. So one cool area where AI could come in is actually tailoring experiences to students and jobs to apply for, not based on what necessarily matches their resume and what they have the highest chance of getting the job, but more so based on passion and interest. One thing, we recently hired a co-op student from Waterloo, and one thing that we saw there is he's extremely passionate and driven just because he really thrives in a startup environment because he also had done his own startup. So we can the technology is at a point where we can move away from the traditional way of I study computer science, I need to apply to every computer science job. But now I study computer science. These are some of the stuff I've worked on. This is some of my interests are. What roles would be the most interesting and propose the biggest learning opportunity for me?
Excellent. And Kevin?
Yes. First thing, all three of the panelists, great panel. Thank you. Yes, my comments are pretty straightforward. I echo everything that's been said, but I'm going to speak directly to the role of a faculty member. Okay, a faculty member must understand the technology enough to guide. We cannot know less than the students. If we know less than the students, then we can't teach them the right ways, the wrong ways, the ethical, the unethical. So it is incumbent. I know I'm a faculty member. I'm busy. I was up to 2 o'clock this morning. I don't have any time for anything. But I do know that I have to at least know a baseline of knowledge about AI so I can sit with a student and say, hey, you didn't do that work yourself. You do it yourself because without you able to do the skills when you get to the workplace, you won't be able to do your job. So let's do it this way. And now let me show you how you can use AI to assist you, how you work with AI. But again, that requires the faculty members to spend the necessary time to elevate their competencies, their proficiency. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to fine tune an AI system and all that type of stuff and understand what RAG is and all that stuff. But you do have to be able to walk up to every student and say, Here's how you can use it productively and effectively and ethically.
I thank you. I would also, if you would entertain me, Carolyn, my background is in neuroscience. And I would also say that there's this level of co-evolution that is happening cognitively as students engage with AI. So, say a student is engaging and they start to only prompt for one answer. It makes them think that there's only one answer to problems. Prompting for multiple solutions is just cognitively widening. So there's some best practices that can occur that could engage critical thinking, but it would be, as Kevin says, up to us to start to deploy these. We can even think of instances where we trust AI over us. How much have we used a Google map over our own intuition of direction, even though we think it could be wrong? But it's AI we trust more than us. And this actually has resulted in some deaths. So the concept of this like omnipotent force that we implicitly trust, that we have a bias towards, and the idea of what it gives back and how it's shaping us and also engaging us in slippery conversations. So what you're coming to, I think, is a very wicked problem of cognitive like restructuring, and it can happen live. And the best case scenario I see that in is ChatGPT psychosis. I was recently at a Mila presentation, which is a research lab, and a person who works on AI algorithms talked about how he himself, someone who knows this technology, develops this technology, had two children and a wife, a very full life, was sucked into a psychotic episode due to his engagement with ChatGPT. And he says, it wasn't because I was lonely. It wasn't because I was searching for companionship. The conversation just got cognitively slippery. It started to reaffirm things I wanted to hear in its sycophancy. And it resulted in 2 years of harm and cognitive restructuring. And this, I think, also is something that like the deployers need to question, because is it addictive? Is being proper, like being prompted a question, like I did this prompt, would you like me to explore this? The multiple engagements and manipulations are not well studied, but being deployed to our students. So that's something to also question. Now I'll stop talking as we proceed to the next question. And I think we have one here. It says, how do we create a sandbox or testing environment for students and individuals to learn and upskill their AI knowledge, particularly within communities who may not have access or technological resources available to them? And maybe I'll actually go, I know it's similar to Iman again because of ICTC situation.
Well, that's a tough one, obviously. So I will start with a broad answer. I would welcome input from my co-panelists as well as Dr. Jones. And I'm afraid we need some added clarity around the question as well. But the way I interpret it is that if you design basically AI sandboxes around expensive hardware, I mean, that's the intention. That's how you're going to develop these sandboxes. Then yes, we automatically exclude people, and then more so we exclude people in remote communities and in disadvantaged situations. The way that we have tried, at least in our training and modular activities at ICTC, to counter that is that we have tried to design them around structured access, applied local problems, and sort of shared infrastructure and guided supervision. So we can basically build them locally in libraries and in community centers, essentially. So the real barrier in these cases is not like really the power of the GPUs, is how interesting the problem is the availability of data locally. And then you could essentially deliver those in a community-based model as well. The key is basically intentional design for each case, as well as close mentorship. So that's how I would start with that. I would welcome input from other panelists as well.
Do we have someone who would like to give a little bit of input on this?
Perhaps more or so our AI specialist can speak to that as well.
Happy to jump in there unless you, yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Jones.
No, go ahead. You go. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing that comes to mind for me right now is, again, trying to understand what those limitations are. So starting by doing a bit of getting a deeper understanding of what resources do they currently have available. I think one of the things we've learned over the years is instead of just immediately jumping to solutions, it is important to have a conversation and understand what is being done. It gives you a much easier framework to work within. One thing we've learned recently is we do a lot of the work I shared today with higher education institutions. We also support many nonprofit employment centers that serve rural populations with job seeker clients, mid-career professionals that don't have access to laptops, desktops, or need to travel, like Iman said, to a library or employment center to get access to those tools. So out of that feedback we've received from those clients, we've enabled access to AI through a phone call. So they can have an entirely cell phone based conversation. And now they're not limited to an internet connection or a hardware. They can still interact with AI in a powerful way using a resource they have available. But it took a bit of conversation and feedback to understand what we could do to support these groups of people based on what kind of things they had available to them.
And let me just I echo both what Iman said and and uh, and and and, uh, and Imran. I'm trying to make sure I say your name right. Okay. Again, I'm speaking from a little bit disadvantaged because the U.S. and Canada, different places, but I'll just speak to the idealized. Okay, and the idealized is libraries exist, schools exist, government facilities exist. Those doors are open at various times. They're everywhere. Even the smallest town has a government building. Those doors have to open. Now, who would do the work? Well, that's where the challenge is, and that's where perhaps uh, educators, perhaps business people, perhaps uh, other adult people join together to say, let's not leave anyone behind. Let's make sure everyone has a chance and use what we do have and try to open those doors. And for me, I think that builds maybe a little confidence in things like government and things like libraries. And as we're struggling in the US, lack of confidence in higher education, maybe that would help us to have a better presence among people who are underserved.
Not leaving anybody behind. What a great comment to end this AI symposium on. I want to thank all the presenters for their time, for their expertise, for their energy to coming to talk to the CEWIL Canada community. If I may be so bold, could I also ask Lamia, Angela, and Krista Steves to turn on their cameras? CEWIL Canada is a team, and it took us a team to organize this month. So I would like to acknowledge their work and their efforts, and to you, the participants who are interested. Not leaving anybody behind means CEWIL Canada does work, but it also means you do work, and hopefully we can change this space together. Thank you, everyone. I'll start to let you guys log off. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, everyone.